Welcome to What the Heck's, your source for Warhammer Underworlds. In under 30 times, I've thought about Underworlds every hour since I left Worlds. I'm your co-host, Davy, and with me is my equally obsessed co-host, Skylar. How are you, Skylar?
I'm still thinking about it. It's so apt.
And my possibly more obsessed co-host, Brian. How are you, Brian?
Gotta go back.
So I'm going to jump right in there and say I got a text message from Bobby, who's also in attendance at Worlds, a few days afterwards. And it was, I think it was Tuesday. It was just like, hey, out of curiosity, like, how much have you thought about Underworld since you got back?
Yeah.
And my response was something along the lines of, I have had a hard time not thinking about Underworld since I got back.
Right. Actually, it's funny you mentioned Bobby. We're going to keep this sidetrack going. I would consider myself, I would have self-identified as like a introverted person that has like learned to be extroverted by the nature of a lot of things I've done. And like every waking minute of my time at Worlds was interacting with people. And so I was so looking forward to, like, on this flight, I'm just going to read my book. I'm not going to talk to anybody. And it turned out Bobby and I were on the same flight. And so we both got there super early. And I ended up sitting and talking with Bobby, and then other people would kind of filter by. We saw, I think, Maxim and Beard Arm, and later George Kairos came by, and that was all cool. But Bobby and I probably had like a 2.5, 3 hour conversation about mostly Underworlds. And it was great. It was like this amazing coda to the weekend, like this bookend on it. And it was tribute. I mean, I know he's part of our local, but I just really enjoyed talking with him. It was a great end to the weekend to kind of have that outro. So yeah, shout out to Bobby, I guess, right out of the gate.
I love hearing that.
Yeah,
I flew in with him. Yeah, it's such a crazy energy. Like it's strange. It's go, but then you also have large pauses between the matches. But
maybe you do.
I have a different perspective. I mean, we all do, and it's what we're here to talk about. But
it's totally right.
It's just nothing like it. It's extremely invigorating. As soon as you're like, oh my god, I'm exhausted, and then somebody else strikes up a conversation with you, and you're like, and we're going.
Yeah, totally. But that's what we're talking about. We're talking about Worlds, and we're giving our unique perspective as three people who went to Worlds in three different roles. I was there to stream it. Skylar was there to compete, and Brian was there to judge. And that's three different angles on Worlds that we're going to bring you today. For your context, it is December the 2nd. So we are, I think I returned home about 1 week ago, plus a couple hours.
Same. Where did this year go?
Yeah, no kidding. What a year. I mean, we really hit it hard. Like LVO, Nova, you guys got Akon in there. You guys got Calgary in there. We did Worlds. Quite the tour of all the highlights. Not all the highlights. We're going to see in what ways we can continue to sample what's out there, but that was great.
And it's a year where we got like 3 quarterlies off the ground, with a third one being the golden ticket event that Bobby took.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And there'll be more on that later. I think we'll talk about what's coming in 2025 for that. But I'm real proud of all the things we've done. I feel like I'm getting. Are we wrapping this episode right now? Have we done it? Are we good?
I'm proud of me too.
Yeah. Before we get into the main body, we're going to do our usual thing. This is community shout outs. And there are a couple I wanted to make sure to do. One, Eba's Underworlds. This is a YouTube channel. We'll have the link in the show notes. And Eba was in our chat all through the stream at Worlds, helping out, providing, people would be asking questions in chat, and I'm trying to do a bunch of different things. So providing answers there, asking questions, being just like keeping that chat feeling like a cool part of the community. And I had known that Eva was doing a set of YouTube videos. I didn't really know how frequent, but it's a good source for about 20-minute highlights on individual warbands. Like take a dive into one particular warband, review the war scroll, give some thoughts on it. So really digestible bites of content which I'd recommend checking out. So check out the show notes, and you'll see a link there.
One of the things I just want to mention about Eva's Underworlds is I went there and checked out the Sirenized Razors video and found out that Eva got into Underworlds as a result of Sephnir, right?
Oh.
And so here I am. I got that video pulled up just ahead of the episode, and I see Jake. Jake has been to this video, has commented on it, and said, "Oh, neat! I also got into the game solely because I saw Sephnir's model."
It's a small world.
There's a whole demographic
small, weird
of that
world. Yeah. What else? Anybody got anything else they want to shout out?
Yeah, I'll jump in there with the French Wargame Studio. And the main reason I want to highlight these guys is simply because they are great guys. Julian specifically was somebody that I got to be in contact with ahead of Worlds that helped get us off the ground. This is something, streaming was not something that we had done before, especially at this capacity and with the technology needs that we were going to need for the event. And Julian was somebody who made himself available to talk this over with, to really kind of like run down our strategy, and gave us the confidence that I would not have had otherwise in order to do this. So thank you a ton if you're listening, and hopefully we get some audience members jumping in and checking out your stuff as well.
I mean, literally, probably the reason that anybody was able to watch any Underworlds from the World Championships of Warhammer is because Julian was able to help us, fumble around and figure things out. So if you have interest in any, they did a lot of streaming of Age of Sigmar and Warhammer 40K. I think even last year when Cyril was going to be in the finals, there was a possibility it didn't quite work out, but they were willing to stream the finals of Underworlds, and for various reasons that didn't happen. Yeah, awesome guys. Chatted with them. We were physically located very close to them all weekend, and it was their setup relative to ours. Like I'm super impressed at what Skylar was able to pull together, but you'd look over and see like our setup versus their setup, and you're like, I think these dudes are like 2 orders of magnitude bigger than what we are doing here. Just super impressive, but still taking the time to like chat with us, see if we're having a good time and all that. So that was super cool. And
the difference between like absolute professional setup, like almost like on TV, what you would expect. They had like the metal rigs over the tables. They had just a slew of cameras, green screen behind them, and then there was us, and you could tell it was like baby's first stream.
I mean, you got to start somewhere, but Davy and Fish really brought it with the outfits.
We did what we could do to make it our own. But I mean, we're already talking about it. Let's talk about Worlds. Brian, you were the only one of us that has been more than once. What do you got?
First off, I want to ask, did I overhype it?
You did not. Somehow.
I know. I'm notorious for overhyping. Because I come back and I'm just buzzing. Last year, I could have just ranted. I tried to keep myself to a little concise review because the energy is just crazy. It's nothing like it. And so I was curious if I had set expectations realistically, or undersold or oversold.
I thought it was pretty incredible, and I think GW has demonstrated a desire and willingness to grow it. We were bigger this year than you guys were last year, and I think the intention is to continue to grow in all aspects, but particularly in Underworlds. They said basically each of the events doubled in size over last year. Yeah, and I think they are indicating that they're willing to continue to do so. And that means more tickets. That means more opportunities for folks out there. And I think you should do it. Like we had some folks coming from kind of small areas, smaller communities, and they were holding their own, and it was kind of incredible. It was great. I had barely had a moment to breathe, but I really enjoyed it. So, yeah.
So on the topic of this thing growing and potentially people who would consider going next year, how did you guys think it went getting to the event? Was it easy? Was it like confusing, or like how was actually getting there? And once you were there, how was that as well?
So I think the important thing to know is that from my perspective, we were about to do something that we had never done before, or had only done on an extremely small scale. And it was going to live or die on the strength of the technical aspect, which I had zero expertise for, was
Yeah,
totally
because
reliant on.
Skylar was getting us all set up, but as
Yeah.
soon as the timer starts and the rounds start, your tech support is no longer available. No pressure,
Exactly.
Davy.
Yeah, and not only that, but like I've convinced Mike Fisher, Fish Mode, to come in from Spent Glory, Underworlds Underground. Is like, hey, would you be willing to like co-host this with me? And all I can keep thinking going through my head is that, like, did I just talk somebody into coming to this and it's just not going to work? Like, we're just going to crash and burn, and somebody's going to have, spent the money on hotel and flight and all that sort of thing, and they've come for nothing. We're fairly confident. Like, Skylar had done a great job, but it's a thing where, like, if it doesn't work, there's not a whole lot I can do to dig us out of there. So that was like this giant like source of stress leading up to it. More so, I think I was more stressed out than if I'd been playing. I can't say for sure, but like for me, that's what it felt like. And
I shared in the stress with you. Yeah. that Friday night before we had the equipment all together for like initial testing and setup and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I remember having a nightmare, stress nightmare, where like I was already at Worlds and I was like, well, we didn't even get a chance to test the equipment. What do you mean? And then like, where is the equipment? Like, we're there, and it was yeah. Awful. And seeping into my subconscious, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, and I can, some of the behind the scenes details I won't get like too in the weeds on, but I can say, like, one of the pre Worlds meetings, there was a conference call, and they're like, hey, all you streamers, you're all getting there Tuesday, aren't you? And I was like, no, I didn't know that was when we were supposed to get there. Like, oh, that's fine, but you're getting there really early on Wednesday, right? And I was like, also no. And they're like, oh, well, that's fine. You must be really confident in your setup. And I was like, oh my God, a third time no. Like, this is hoof.
Why are you trying to kill me?
Yeah. And so I like emergency bumped my flight up to make sure that we were there with enough time to, carve out a space, and be as ready as we could be. I can't say enough how much appreciate Skylar, basically, and you get, listeners are probably already aware of this, but at the same time, we are also like working through. There are 18 warbands and 2 rivals decks are going to leave embargo on the Saturday that we're there. And so we were also trying to make content, what would already be like a huge stressful time for us, and we're trying to make that happen. So it's like, Skylar, you have no responsibility for any of that. And you're like, oh no, but I want to help. I'm like, you're the only person who can do what you are doing. Like, put all the rest of that out of your mind. We need you for that. And you were doing that, and you're doing it at the cost of like preparation for Worlds, which is, who knows when, if ever, one of us will ever qualify again. And so I know you would be too modest to be able, to say it, but you did sacrifice a lot of your own personal preparation to make sure that the community was able to have, this resource that you made possible with the stream. So I've told you privately, but I think it's worth saying publicly on air. Thank you for all you did there.
Well, thanks, guys. Yeah. I'm just stoked. Like, it was number one priority for me. Was I guess there was a moment where we weren't sure if we were going to get a second commentator.
Yeah,
and I was ready to like eject from competing to be that second commentator. And there was almost no choice in my mind. Like, yeah, of course I wanted to play at Worlds, compete, test myself there, and enjoy all the games, against everybody that I would get to play games against. But I wanted first and foremost for this to get out there for everybody. And I'm gonna bring Fish into the conversation here. Fish mode, also known as Other Mike, or just Mike.
I think he's pretty comfortable with the Other Mike, not moniker. So
yeah, very comfortable. But he I guess mentioned that when he heard that I was considering dropping to jump on the mic with you, that there was no way in hell he was going to let that happen. So I meant to give him a hug and say thank you there. So I hope you're listening, and take this as the hug I meant to give you. I think I gave you a hug anyways. I just didn't explain myself.
You definitely did, and I definitely wasn't 100% sure that it had come across exactly why that hug was coming in, but I'm sure it was appreciated nonetheless. Brian, you were returning. Why don't you talk to us quick about what your expectations and what your thoughts were coming in for your second round at Worlds?
Oh, I can't quite get into the details, but I knew ahead of time that we were going to be dealing with second edition, so I was panicking to some extent because I was like, how are we going to be ready for this? And oh my god, the events team bent over backwards and really tried to make it so that all the competitors would be able to do the best they could given the incredibly tight circumstances of getting all the content as early as they could, get it to the competitors in order to have a fulfilling competition. And watching it all unfold, having a bunch of different information gates because I had that knowledge beforehand, and then obviously like our content creator knowledge beforehand, knowing who I could talk about these things to and not was a challenge for me. So when I was in my sleep deprived state, I just kept my mouth shut as best I could.
Yeah. I know every so often I'd ask you a question and I would just see you like lock up and your eyes would like kind of glaze over. And I was like, I think I might have entered the territory where he's not sure which side of which NDA he's allowed to like talk to me about.
I was definitely like, what? No, you don't. Where's your code? Like, you don't have access.
I'll say this. Yeah, go ahead.
And also having Skylar competing and making sure that he didn't have any sort of advantage. But of course, like me and him geek out about new stuff, new reveals, new information, or who's bringing what to what tournaments. And so when I start getting the information and I just have to go, but I can't say nothing because he doesn't want to have any advantage. Like there was already concerns about, anybody out there who is a playtester or content creator who would have early access to work ahead on, any of the competitors who aren't either of those things already. And so I know we didn't want any sort of unfair advantage. We want the World Championship to be, a truly fair competition as best as we can, because the circumstances of second edition dropping so close, like there was going to be issues. And ultimately, I'm really glad that it didn't pan out that way. That it's like, well, of course, a content creator had earlier access, and therefore, no, that's not how it panned out. So,
yeah.
Oh, it was a lot of stress and just kind of watching and keeping my mouth shut, trying not to say the wrong thing to the wrong person. But finally, when we all arrived at Worlds, being able to geek out with each of you and just be like, I know, right? I've seen this.
Yeah, it was. It took some discipline to like keep those firewalls up, because at the same time as we're preparing for all this, on top of that, we have our own local, which is going through an edition change, and we're trying to, Sherpa them through that, be like, hey, check it out. And we were using, again, thanks to GW for, providing that preview content, and we were able to leverage that to, have our locals like, hey, like, here's boards, and Skylar, you printed out basically facsimile boards, and we brought as much as we could so people could just try second edition out, because that's kind of what got us to where we are as far as being excited about this game is having built up a local to be what it is. And we would be remiss if we neglected our locals, to pursue this big thing at Worlds.
Yeah, so those boards, by the way, those came to be in a super fun way. So I want to highlight that because I think it's just fun to hear, fun to share. So Jake of Goonhammer is responsible for those boards. So when we received our materials to start prepping for Worlds, collectively, everybody that was going to be playing there, it did not include boards. And so, somebody pointed this out, and I had remembered that Jake had mentioned that was something that he was going to be working on for his content push. It was like I hadn't seen it yet because it was a hypothetical, like, hey, I'm gonna make this, sort of a deal. But I reached out to him and I was like, hey, is that still something that you're doing? Because if so, would you be willing to share those files with me so I can get those out to everybody that's going to Worlds, and that's maybe then what they can practice on. And
for clarity, like they'd already shown the boards on various different games that they were showing on Warhammer TV, as well as already shown in the preview content. And this was kind of like, I think Jake's intention was that he wanted to get demo games rolling, and so being able to print off boards and get people familiar with it, that then became a tool that a lot of the playtesters, or not playtesters, the people playtesting for Worlds, but were competitors, started using as a tool.
Yeah. And I mean, that was just great. Like, not only did they facilitate Worlds practice, but they also then, as Davey mentioned, I was like, well, hold on, I can print some of these and bring these to our local as soon as the embargo is up, and we can stretch 2 copies of Emberguard, which is what we had available for review at that time. We can stretch it from 2 games being played to 4 games being played with 8 players, if I can just proxy up some of the fighters and boards and stuff like that. So that was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, how great is that story? Like, we got somebody who is not going to Worlds, right? Like, not represented there, and is providing this service, which is like making that possible. Like, the reasons people are excited about this game is the game itself, but also the community that surrounds it, and that's kind of a testament. That is like an example of that kind of community aspect that makes things great. So
it's such a collaborative effort. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're keeping this pretty free form, but
yep. So that kind of prefaced our prep getting into the event. I'm curious now, boarding the planes and arriving in Atlanta, how did you guys think it went getting to the event?
I mean, again, giant ball of stress over here. I was the first one in, and I tried to answer as much Q&A as I could, but you never know. Yeah, the rail worked great. That was not stressful for me. I was like, I'm going to figure that out, but I'm going to roll into this hall, and I'm going to try and caveman unga bunga set up what I think is a good situation. We had to move multiple times. There was the GW community manager was kind of amazing, got us this cool backdrop that we were able to use, but that had its own, challenges. Anyway, I think it was not until after 9 p.m. I was still all my suitcases just in the main hall. I have not checked into my hotel yet. I'm more than half a mile away that I got to walk and, go figure out, set up or whatever. But for me, I was still in that is this going to work sort of thing. I'm going to try and make this as easy as possible for Skylar when he gets here, and then hope he can come save the day. Scooting in, Atlanta's well set up for this. If I didn't have these is this going to work things, it would have felt great.
Yeah, on my side, I got to the airport and they bumped my flight So that was like immediately like, like, what do you mean? And like, I still don't know why my flight got bumped. But like, it worked out. And so like, I like to think that whoever was behind the scenes changing this on me was just kind of like, well, like, maybe they had overflow. I don't know. But they were like, hey, this other plane goes to the exact same place and gets him there at the exact same time with his layover. So sure, why not? Like, it was just startling when I showed up, and essentially my layover time was at the beginning when I could have slept in instead of in the middle. But it worked out. I still got there exactly when anticipated. And yeah, I mean, they did a really good job picking Atlanta for this. I'm, the largest international airport hub, right? And then you get off there and walk to the MARTA, or sorry, and like the MARTA, it's the name of the tram. Like there's access to it in the airport.
Yeah, you don't even have to leave the airport building.
Yeah, and then you get on there, and it takes you, within a block of the address. And so, I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say I was nervous. I've really never been on a tram. Like maybe the Chicago airport one, sure, but nothing like this, especially nothing alone. I ended up feeling like I was on Dead Space, which was a fun and weird feeling.
No necromorphs, though.
No necromorphs.
I don't know what you guys are talking about, but it sounds like a good thing that those things didn't happen.
Yeah.
But once you get to the
Resident Evil stuff.
Yeah, in space. One of my it's my favorite game, Dead Space. But I digress. I mean, once you get to the hotel is gorgeous. I was just like, whoa! I don't think I've ever been in a hotel like this fancy or like with this big of like
it's very grandiose.
Yeah, like you walk in and you can just see all the levels above, and like that's an interesting architecture choice.
Yeah, if you've ever seen Dread, it feels a bit like peach trees, which is funny because the hab block in Dread is named Peachtree, and this is Petrie Center.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Wow. I had a weird sensation of walking in there and realizing I'd been in there, like no lie, I don't know, like 24, 25 years prior. And I'd been there for a conference when I was in college. I couldn't have even told you that conference was in Atlanta, but I walk in, I was like, whoa, this elevator is super familiar. And then I looked up, I'm like, I've been in this hotel.
That'd have been crazy.
It was like super disorienting. Like what is happening, super exciting. And then of course I'm walking in, I'm on my own, so I can't turn to anyone and be like, what, can you believe this? So yeah, really, really wild.
But yeah, I mean, I think everything was just extremely well thought out, because there's also the food court that's attached via Skybridge. Starbucks is attached via Skybridge. Very important to me. I'm just kidding. But I did use the Starbucks quite a bit.
Kidding, but not kidding. Yeah.
Yeah. It was smooth. And I mean, getting to the event itself, which I think is where we're arriving, right?
Yeah.
You asked before if you'd overhyped it, and even with your excitement, like I don't know what I expected. I expected it to feel like Adepticon, and in a way it did, but truly it was like no experience I've ever had before. It was unique and amazing, and that had to do with this just awesome sense of camaraderie throughout the entire hall. Everyone that you talk to is just excited to be there, and it's a celebration, and you can feel that, and the energy that I got to share with everyone, and was shared from everyone, was just like it echoed in the best way. Like everyone just exuded this celebration and made it something uniquely special.
Yeah, 100%. That was kind of an amazing aspect of it all.
Yeah, it's so cool. They, I really like a lot of the thought behind the event, and getting there, just making it as easy as possible. If anybody's worried about, will you be able to make it to the event? I wanted to get across that they chose the venue because it would be easy for people who are unfamiliar traveling to get there. And so that's really nice. And then when you arrive, it lives up to it. And once you're there, everybody's just vibing. You got that. It's an echo chamber of just celebration, and everybody's energy is just infectious. It's so good. But there's plenty of space to spread out. Like I saw people, that there was different corners if people needed space. You got your hotels right above, and they have hotels connected. So I'm excited for if this just continues to double and expand in size, and there's attached hotels with their own convention halls. I can only imagine where this will be 10, 15 years from now. And that's super cool, because when we did the opening ceremony, Mike Brandt, the guy who's running the show, or, one of the figureheads, there's a whole team, but he talked about a lot in a lot of the lead up prep and the opening ceremony about, like, take a moment, take it in. People are going to ask you 10, 15 years from now, what was it like? You were there. How was it? Take a moment, take it all in, and think about what you're going to tell those people 10, 15 years from now. And I think that's really special. It's really cool. Can't wait to tell more people. Like, I got friends back home here that I go and visit, guys that don't get out to the store very often, guys that they did do stuff that I asked them about. Oh, what was a games day like? What was going to a battle bunker like back when GW ran those kinds of events? And now I'm going to be able to go and brag about what we're doing now. So
yeah. I was maybe going to save this for later, but Mike Brandt was just a huge part of the success of the event. There's leaders and there's leaders, and Mike Brandt was a leader. I've been in a lot of career fields and a lot of things where, like, the value of leadership, is on display. And I was just incredibly impressed by him, like, top to bottom, like the way he managed any kind of challenging situation that arose. He did it with, like, a calm and professionalism that was infectious. Like he was calming to the folks around him because he was confident that he was going to be able to figure it out. And I don't know, it was just it was a huge part of the reason that there was any kind of success at all for the weekend. And not that he's asking, but I'd follow that guy to the gates of hell. Like, he was impressive, very impressive.
There's times where I find myself getting hot-headed, and I'm like, I think I have a righteousness behind my hot-headedness. I'm like, I'm in the right here, and I want to say some stupid stuff at the time. And then I check with you, and I'm just like, man, why is Davy so much better at this? And I think you're partly on this, like, on the same cloth, cut from the same cloth. I don't know, and on the same trajectory. Like, you have a level-headedness that every time I'm like, no, this is when I'm going to go off the cuff, and then you bring it back, and I think you are in the same ballpark. You give the same energy a lot, but Mike Brandt, there was every time I was like, oh, how are we going to come back from this? And we can talk about that a little bit later. He would just knock it out of the park, and it really makes my job a lot easier as the judge when he's the man behind and backing, making sure the event really is spectacular.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in there and say that I agree on the Davy front. That's Davy respect. That's game respecting game right there, Davy. Shouting out Mike. And I'd follow either of them to the gates of hell, 100%.
Well, it's turning into a real love fest here, but I appreciate that. Like, that's good company to be in. So Yeah, that's a setup. Where do we go from there, fellas?
Well, I say
You know what you said, Brian?
what?
You said that there was a lot of space, and I want to call that out. No, there was not. I mean, there was across the hall, and
Well,
but
what I,
but I have never played Underworlds at smaller tables.
okay, okay.
Period.
I'm going to jump in here as well because I arrived and Val, who was on one of my favorite episodes we've done of all time, was when we had Val and Willie on for an
Yeah.
interview. Those guys were amazing.
Oh, that was so exciting for me to be like, oh, you're finally getting to be able to meet these people. Like they were
Yeah.
so cool when I like it's so cool to interact with these people on Discord and online, and then you finally get to meet them. And like last year, Jan Willie had like my favorite sportsmanship game in the Shadow Round between him and Steven. And that those guys just had such a friendly game and just absolute peak sportsmanship there. And I was so excited for you guys to get to meet all of them and all the people that we interact with online. It was so cool.
Well, I'm there. I'm setting up. I'm a total ball of stress trying to like make sure things are good. And Val's like, hey, I think you earned a cup of coffee. Like, let's go upstairs and just like chat for a bit. And I was like, you're right. And so like Val was this like settling presence, but Skylar, you might have had less space except for Val, because while I was like trying to set stuff up, Val was like looking at what was set aside for Underworlds, and he's like, this is not going to work. And he talked to some of the organizers and raised some concerns early enough that there was able to be an intervention to make sure that the Underworlds players had like just a little bit more space to work with, and a little bit more like structure to their area, because we had kind of become like we're going to get whatever space everybody else is not using. And so Val, if y'all out there in the Underworlds community that went to Worlds didn't realize it, like Val made your experience better just by being there early and making himself useful. So shout out there.
Not all heroes wear capes, and dang it, I didn't know that you needed a cape that whole time, Val.
Yeah, but
I can't imagine smaller space.
Wearing a cape, because he would rock it. It would look.
I think
good.
he would. Yeah.
Right. Well, again, the community is such a good collaborative effort. Everybody's trying to make everybody else also have a good time.
Brian, I think even Edna Mold would be like, Val, yes, cape.
Edna Mode.
No idea what this reference is, but carry on.
Incredibles.
Come on.
I'm sorry.
Really?
What?
Oh, watch that with the kids. 1 and 2. They're both fantastic.
We probably watched it. I probably slept through a lot of it.
All right.
You guys will learn when you have kids. There are times when you catch up on sleep, and some of those are during the animated movies.
Got it.
Fair.
Well, so we were getting second edition dropped on us, and we all knew that Worlds was effectively going to set the meta. What did you guys expect, and was what appeared at Worlds what you expected?
I'm going to jump in.
Oh, yeah.
So I anticipated a monumental presence of 3 fighter warbands. That's what I thought. I did not realize that it was going to be only drum. And I mean, that's a bit of an exaggeration. But
yeah, we had our eyes on Morgox more than drum.
Not much of an exaggeration.
Yeah. But yeah, I was confident there'd be multiple Morgox there. I was confident there would be the new ones, the Ember
Watch.
Thank you. I always want to call them the Ember Guard and the Season Ember Watch. Right. It flips me around. But I thought the Ember Watch with Rack and Ruin would be the deck to beat. And I thought that was partly in a sense that like I feel that the Rack and Ruin deck is really easy to counterplay. However, it's hard to counterplay something when you're dead. And I thought the pings that you could get from a Countdown to Cataclysm pairing there were like 8 pings in that pairing.
Yeah.
And the Ember Watch are in a unique position where if somebody was like, hey, I'm just going to camp the edge hexes, they can pop into an edge hex themselves, shoot the person out, and then before scoring, use a push to push themselves back in. And so I thought they were uniquely equipped to handle like the counterplay that would be happening against them. And like, I don't know if I just kind of overhyped this idea and this deck in my head, if there's still good play there. But my number one thoughts going into Worlds was that 3-fighter warband elites, Thricefold, Drom, Emberwatch. I even thought Farstriders would be there. Like I think that they're still like in line with Emberwatch. I think some might argue that they're a step below, but I think that they've got enough shenanigans in like positioning, which is where a lot of their shenanigans are, that they could still play ball. So that's what I was expecting as far as a field went, and I didn't think that we'd see much horde hold, which did come true. But yeah, what did you guys think going in?
I didn't have to worry about it. I wasn't playing. I knew all I was gonna have to do is like watch and absorb. I think I had some inklings along there. I can say here that I'm very embarrassed by one of our blog entries. I think I was the primary reviewer for Drom, and I definitely said they were strong. But I think if you read my outro in there, I'm like, they're real strong. I'm excited for them. I think there's cool things to do. I think people are gonna like be surprised how good they are. Apparently, people are not going to be surprised at all. They are really good, and that's just the nature of like trying to review stuff without the time to try everything out. But I thought we'd see some, and was kind of blown away by the number we saw, which was 17 out of 46.
Correct.
Oof.
Over a third of the field.
Yeah.
And then if you add up the 3 bands, it was over half the field was 3 bands.
And do we think that is on the strength of Reckless Fury?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think that deck is I mean, there's 2 parts of the equation. And like when you add them together, like, oh boy, like drama is definitely its own issue that I'm sure will be addressed. Yeah. And I think Reckless Fury, this feels different to me than like Athlum, Domatan, Force of Frost, where when Force of Frost got hit as hard as it did, people were like, "Oh, that's kind of a bummer. It was just these 2 abusing it. Like, couldn't you have hit them a little harder and save Force of Frost for the rest of us?" But here, I think it's truly like both are their own issues that will need to be addressed.
Yeah. So this would be a good transition point to talk about a fumble / pick up and run with it situation. I can tell you exactly how prevalent Reckless Fury was, because one of the issues we had is in the logistics hustle that the events team had to do in order to make sure that because there was no guarantee that all of the competitors were going to be able to get the content to play the game at Worlds, because it was releasing at the same time. So the events team had to pre-order all this stuff, get it in hand, and then they were going to give it out to the competitors as they registered. Challenging is that when you're packing up a massive event like the World Championship, you're packing terrain tables for 40k, Age of Sigmar, Kill Team, and Underworlds doesn't have terrain. They love Underworlds because it is so low maintenance. But they had to get that content there. And as they unpacked the trucks with all the terrain, all the shop, the Terminator statue, all this kind of stuff, we're like, where's this? Where's that? And most of it came, but we're like ripping through boxes trying to find the Reckless Fury, Wreck and Ruin. And
I can attest to the sheer quantity of boxes, because as the first person there, like to set up our spot, like the spot they pointed to literally had like 75 boxes of AOS terrain. I was like, guess I'm gonna move all these myself. Just moving it. That was like, it was just a tiny fraction of how much was there to like make it happen.
Well, each of the players at the World Championship, no matter which game system, got big black boxes full of swag. and that was for every player got that, and it was really cool.
And I plan to use my rulers at the table, measuring hexes.
Yeah, they had tools in there for each of the game systems. I don't think they knew what to include in there for Underworlds, but they had some generic like tokens and coins, and even a big metal dice, so you can use that for your counter in your matches for whatever bookkeeping. But we were handing out the content, and they're like, players are like, I still need to construct my deck with the actual cards, because they had like download to play test with. They didn't actually have the physical cards. They were receiving that at registration, and they're like, I still need to construct my deck for tomorrow morning. And we're like, it should be here, it should be coming. And then it wasn't. So we're like, the morning of, we were like, okay, it didn't make it. And this is where Mike Brandt's just like, don't worry, we're going to make it right. It's being overnighted. It didn't make it. So then, okay, we're going to do it again. But now we are on day one of the tournament, and we had to print off and cut out proxy cards until the decks finally arrived. And so I can tell you that we printed out, we made sure that if somebody was going to be playing with a printout deck, that their entire deck would be printed out. So not only did we have to print off the decks that we didn't physically have, because they got the Emberguard box. So if they had like Reckless Fury and Emberstone Sentinels, we couldn't just print off Reckless Fury, because then the Emberstone Sentinel cards would feel different in the sleeve. So we had to print off Emberstone Sentinels too, even though they already had the physical Emberstone Sentinels. And then they would have a card in there to sleeve with the paper copy, or they could just do the paper card in their sleeve. So I could tell you that we printed off 22 Reckless Fury cards, or decks, and we had to sit in the back, and we were just snipping away. So yeah, 22 out of 46 were using Reckless Fury. It's a strong deck.
It is a good deck.
And then we had like 18 Blazing Assault. That was the next most prevalent deck. So yeah, we were snipping away. The players,
aggro.
Yeah. The players were all very understanding. We obviously, this is not an ideal situation, but they were all very willing to roll with it. Mike Brandt threw some nice placation their way, and everybody was really appreciative of the effort that we all, because we weren't expecting this. The events team had done everything that they could, and somewhere along the line it just didn't work. But eventually we got the cards printed off. We had to start a round late. We later squeezed that round back in to the event later on the Saturday. But yeah, once we got that rolling, the event was on, and we're in it. I think that's when we just kind of, all three of us went our separate ways and did our own thing. We obviously got to touch base here and there. But the next 4 days, just for that, like, we were doing our own thing for 3 hours. We get to touch base in between rounds just briefly, and then there'd be another 3 hour gap of just like ships passing in the night, just how'd it go, like, oh great, yeah, they're really awesome, and then I'm gone.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing, because like the three of us would kind of like overlap periodically, where it would just be like, late in day 3 and 4, the judges might be floating close to the stream table, because we're covering the tables that are fairly high at this point. And I could lean over and be like, hey, Brian, like, we need an update on the other semifinal table, or Brian, hook me up. Like, I can't intervene, and I don't want to like, impinge on the game in any way, but if you can find a way to let me know what the blood tithe count is on the Gore chosen player, the folks watching the stream would really appreciate a confirmed count or whatever. And then, Skylar is in the mix, and like, playing. And I think only once did I have to like come interrupt the game. It was in the very last day. It might have been the semifinal, and I was like, Skylar, there's a problem I cannot fix. And Benoslav, I want to say Benoslav was huge. I was like, I'm so sorry to interrupt your game. the community needs this man. Can you spare him for 5 minutes? And he was super gracious and allowed it. So, but
Absolutely.
it was fun to like all be part of the same mission, but like, engaging with it from different angles, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, if there was going to be an interruption, that was the perfect time, because that was the day with 4-hour matches. And Benislav and I were confident that we would not need the full 4 hours. And like when you came over and asked, and I looked at him, he gave the expression I received in response was, "What are you still doing sitting here?" Like it wasn't stated as such, but it was like, "Go!" Like, so that was cool.
It was funny how often like I'd encounter somebody and somebody be like, "Oh, well, that's Benislav, right? Or that's Goro, right? Or that's yeah."
The weekend was full of that for me. Strong agree. There were times
so fun because back in what was it, 2020 or was it 2021 when we did a online WTC 8-man team tournament, and we were Team USA or one of Team USA's, and we got to interact with and play. And Davy was kind of telling us, because you had more of the history on Goro, he's a really good player. Diablerist. Diablerist wasn't in attendance at Worlds, but Benislav, I got to talk with him about when we got paired up with Team Poland, and we had to play our games and how that all went, and who we were like, oh no, I pulled Benislav. You enjoy the challenge and being able to test yourself against these opponents online, but then being able to actually meet and interact face to face, it's just so much better than online. It's so nice. It's so great.
Yeah, it is. And there's a funny dynamic of Goro has wrecked me on online games or whatever. I'm ready to hate this guy, and then meet him he's the sweetest dude in the world.
Yeah.
I was like, all right. You're a good guy. You're not just a good guy. You're a really good guy.
When you put the face, it's not just the online username boogeyman that wrecks your league run or your tournament performance.
I thought I learned the lesson from Bushi in Alberta, Josh, that if I don't want complete system shock, ask for a Discord username early on. But I did not learn my lesson, and there were still individuals where I would enjoy a whole match with them, and then I'd be like, do you have a Discord handle, by the way? Would I recognize your handle at all? And then I would hear it, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I've seen you around. I've been sitting here enjoying a game with you. Let me quickly calibrate my ideas of you, both the in-person one and the online one, and merge them together. Whoa!
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, Calgary was hilarious. We were interacting with Andy and Josh this whole time, and we're just like, are you guys on the Discords? And they're just like, hee, yes. Bucci and Hammer Sauce, and we're just like, oh, you scamp.
Hold on, is Andy Hammer Sauce?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Right?
Talking about Emberwatch, I got to have Andy on the stream playing Emberwatch, and wow. That was, so Skylar, you mentioned having them on your radar super high, and for me I was like, yeah, they're fine, but watching Andy play them, I was like, holy cow, this not only is this warband good, but this guy can play. And it was just one of many moments in the streams that we ran. There was oh, this is so cool to be capturing this and being able to watch this play out. And play out where this warband is strong, but it's strong because of the pilot, the really leveraging some impressive plays here.
Yeah,
glad to hear it.
One of my favorite things is last year, it wasn't a separation of oil and water. There wasn't a clear delineation between the World Championship players and the rest of the players or whatever. It was completely mixed up. You don't know who any of these people are going to actually just surge to the top. Everybody's a dark horse here. I love that. Everybody's capable of spectacular plays and pulling it.
If you want any more proof, the two finalists from the previous year collectively together went 7-13. Like they were, one of them was 3-7, one was 4-6. Like that is, ostensibly the two best players from 2023 could not combine to a winning record in 2024. And that's no knock on them. That is a tribute to the level of competition that is out there. Like that is impressive.
Yeah. When they say that we're going to just continue to increase in attendance, it's not just like filling out, the numbers. We're not just stuffing it with everybody who can play. It's like we've just barely started hitting the surface of like the level of competition that we have in this community and the quality of competitors that we can bring to Worlds.
Reminds me of that meme that you sent out, the from Invincible, where it's like the perspective of a friend back home and a player at WCW, and it's friend back home. Hopefully, you get some easier games tomorrow since you lost, player at WCW. That's the neat part. You don't.
Yeah, just caliber of competition and. It's so cool. Like I saw an article just before Worlds kicked off where somebody was tracking ELO scores, and I think this largely was 40K, but I think we'll see if like player ELO scores start getting tracked for all the other game systems across Worlds. But it's basically a way to differentiate player performance through all the games that they play at events. And just before Worlds 24 kicked off, they had confirmed with all the players that were registered. I think they were looking at 40K specifically, but it was Worlds now has the highest concentration of high performing ELO scores at Worlds over any of the other large conventions. And I think that's always the goal, that the World Championships would be that, but that's not always how it pans out, right? But it's really cool to see that it has. And I think if you were to ELO score everybody, Underworlds would be no different. I think we would see a high caliber of competition across the board of all the world's players for Underworlds. And I think there's more to be had.
Absolutely.
Right.
So that kind of, we've talked a little bit about the meta. I guess, it's late to be talking about it, but the format for folks who are not aware, there were a total of 10 rounds, 6 with pool play. Everyone was cut up into 4 pools, and the 4 top performers from each pool would go into the top 16 and then play out in a bracket of 16, single elimination.
Yeah. So one of the things that pool play, when players register, they split them up into pools based on country. They want to evenly spread out the country so that you don't travel across the world and then end up playing your neighbor, that you see at local tournaments.
Yeah. What's that like?
Yeah, like we said, we've had a busy year. We're traveling around, and when you roll out in a big squad, and it's fun to go to an event with your friends, but when you have a large attendance at the event, you're inevitably going to have some fratricide and have to play against some of your friends. But
that's a new achievement for me though. like I want to I put it in the achievement board. I have to achieve it one day. Like get my son into a game that we're both excited about and willing to go to a tournament competitively. Travel for that and then have to play each other.
Yeah.
Literally the same household. But yeah, so they tried their best to avoid that. So like there is a large amount of Canadians and Americans at Worlds, but they split them up. I think there was like 11 of each. And so in the 4 pods, they split them up evenly as best they can. So that, for instance, another country like Italy had 3 players. They didn't want any of those 3 to play against each other. So each of them was distributed in the pods. So, and that they do that for all the different game systems. That doesn't necessarily mean that the pods are created equally. Like in 40K, they were talking about the elo scores. They didn't spread it out by elo score, so that it was evenly distributed. There was going to be some pods that had a higher concentration of higher elo scores, and people kind of complain about, oh well, my I was the guppy in the shark tank, and it's like, that's not what they're kind of scaling for here. Again, they don't want you playing your buddy next door after you just traveled across an ocean. And so, there's a shortcoming with any sort of tournament system but you got to schedule it, and you got to like structure it based on your priorities. And I think in pool play, they have the right call there. It would be a bummer to play against your best friend and knock each other out, or your neighbor, knock each other out right away round one, in terms of running, especially in 40K. Like, you don't have an opportunity to lose if you want to be gunning for the championship. So that it's just how it is. And, if it's not a favorable structure, that can be very case dependent, so, but that, yeah. I would say, again, if you're considering, or you have the option to go to Worlds, that is, I think, a good thing, that you won't end up playing your neighbor.
Yeah. And I think another consideration, if you're going to Worlds, like, you're worried, am I going to show up here, and is it going to be all people who are just like, angle shooting, like, are they all like trying to find every possible advantage? And so I think it's worth talking about sportsmanship a little bit here.
100%.
Yeah. And from my perspective, and having watched 10 matches, like blow for blow, it was incredible. Like, I watched, including Skylar, who put you on the stream. I watched people like high five each other over like really good plays, really good rolls. Like, it was just incredible. And that's not to say that, like, some people didn't struggle. Like, I'm not here to like paint a picture that is unrealistic. I think there was at least one player that was struggling with their losses. How they reacted to those losses, and that's where the judging team was able to step in, provide some guidance. And I can legit say, like, I could see a change in that player after some judge intervention. I think that player finished out the weekend in a way that they could probably be proud of, even if they didn't start it in the way that they wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys will have more of the magnifying glass on some of the sportsmanship stuff, because normally we don't get called over for a good moment. We're there to help fix and lead to good moments.
Right. Exactly.
But when like last year was great. I was very thankful towards all the players last year, for calling us, they're experienced players. There shouldn't be a stigma to calling a judge over and making sure, you want to make sure that any doubts or concerns were heard, and then we can either address it, figure it out, or find a resolution or a middle ground to it if it's not handled in the rule book. And so last year, didn't really have any big controversies. That's the last thing you want to do, is have an event where you walk away and you're like, we killed it and it was great. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, nothing was done about this. Be like, why? I didn't know anything about that. Like, nobody brought it to my attention. Because, like, if there's a concern or a stigma about, like, well, if I call a judge over, I'm calling my opponent a cheater. No, that's not it at all. Right. And again, I want to thank the competitors for calling us over, having us address that, making sure everybody's heard. There's a lot of language barriers here. Maybe we can help clear that up. Maybe it's a misunderstanding in different metas. Like, we had one where it was like somebody played in a different meta that was much more like Garage Hammer, and a bunch more takebacks were allowed. And, having to talk through, this is their first major tournament experience, and not everybody's going to play that way, especially when you have large trophies and large credit, like being the World Championship on the line. So having the opportunity to at least talk through kind of help each other understand their perspectives. At least might not be their favorite opponent for the week, but at least then you have a better understanding and you're not just walking away, that guy was a dead,
Yeah. Yeah.
So really appreciate that all of the players, again, it's been a week. I haven't heard or been made aware of anything that I wasn't aware of, but it seemed to have gone off well. And I'm just really thankful to the players for, boy, we were running around, but we could always be running around more.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we got called that. I'm glad that I was utilized, and I'm glad that we had, again, my co-judge, John, there again, as well as other John. So it was enjoyable.
John Prime and other John.
Yeah. John and other John.
So I want to take an opportunity to shout out one particular moment of sportsmanship that I was very impressed by. And I think, I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think it may have been overlooked by most of the field. I had the opportunity to see some amazing moments and call them out on stream. And I know the stream appreciated it. They were, they're saying, hey, thanks for calling out these sportsman things. But this was something that happened in a game that we did not cover. Our semifinal match had concluded, and got up from watching that semifinal to go watch the other, which was Matteo from Italy on Gorchosen playing a mirror match into Maxim from Canada on Gorchosen. And they went, I could be mistaken, but my understanding is that this match went to 3 games. And Matteo, right. Yeah, Matteo wins this game, wins the match, wins the 3rd game. And it came down to the end phase because I know it was scoring. I think he felt pretty good. Matteo is a pretty demonstrative player, awesome to watch this guy, just a grin on his face so often. And the moment when they figured out that it was going to be an all Italian final, Matteo jumps up and Daniela jumps into his arms, and they're bouncing around and they're cheering and they're so excited, and they have this celebration. They've worked so hard for this moment. And they know there's going to be an Italian champion. It's incredible, right? Now think about this. You are the player who just lost in the semifinal, and you lost your chance to be the world champion. That is a difficult moment. And so I look over at Maxim from Canada, and he could be indignant. He could be frustrated by this huge demonstrative thing, which is a totally understandable. It was amazing. It was a great moment. And all I see is he's leaning back in his chair and he is grinning ear to ear. And I couldn't even look away from him. I was locked in on him, and I was like, man, what a sportsman. This guy is happy for somebody else having a great moment. He recognizes the amazingness of this moment, and he is here to appreciate it. And I don't know if anyone else saw it in the moment, but it was incredible to me, and I just wanted to shout it out right here because it was great. It was incredible.
Yep. Oh yeah, that's awesome.
I noticed that too. Of course, Matteo and Daniele were jumping around, and yeah, I saw that too, and it was just that's so nice. It really is. Those are the moments more than anything in a game, in a match. I can't tell you what plays I did at Adepticon, but when I was cheering for my opponent, when George was rolling double crits, he finished out each of our games with double crits, and I was cheering him on for big moments, and he double crit on me. It was that's what I remember, not little game plays or little wins that I did. It's so nice. That's what I want to. I come away from Worlds wanting to focus more on that each time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I feel like this is the time to jump in and share my joy.
Definitely. I know you have great moments.
Oh, my God.
You were doing it.
Yeah. So I'll start by saying that there wasn't a single match that didn't have great sportsmanship present at the table, which made me super happy.
I was sorry to final interjection, but I was I'm so excited for you to be able to interact with these people that I had seen last year and that, we had interacted with online, but now you get to meet them face to face. And I know that you're a great ambassador for the game, so I wanted them to experience you as well. And after each game, I was like, oh, what did you think of them? And they're like, oh my God, they're my favorite. And then after the next game, oh my God, they're my favorite. Oh my God, they're my favorite. You're like a golden retriever.
I was definitely enjoying every match. I know I really shocked you when I mentioned after Julian that it was my favorite set, period. And you were like, really? Like, I've heard you say like favorite, more than once already. I'm like, no, 100%. I'll be shocked if it's beat. Like, Julian was my favorite set, and that was one that was the one that got to be on stream as well. So I have that memento going forward, and that feels really good as well. I've actually already watched it back just to see how the stream went, like what the game looked like, and hear the commentary and just kind of relive it, because it was such a fun set to live inside of. I wanted to revisit it. It was Gitz versus what I brought, which was Elthari's Guardians. I guess this is the first time we really said on the cast that I brought Elthari's Guardians. But that game was full of like amazing mechanical intrigue. Like, there were so many cool plays. It was such an interesting match. And man, were we like high-fiving and living it up. Like, we both would occasionally, when a good play would happen across the table, we'd kind of like drop our hand for a second, just to like look our head up at the other person and just be like, dude, good play. It was so fun. Yeah. But yeah, we tried to at the end, we tried to manufacture like a thumbs up and getting both of our heads in frame to the camera, like synchronized. We didn't quite get it. We got both of our thumbs in there, but it was hard to predict that camera angle. That was a blast. And so that was my favorite set, which is why I was so excited to highlight that one. But I don't want that to detract. Like, yes, I had a favorite set, but I enjoyed all of them so much. You're all wonderful people, and so like I just want to say, like, I got to play against G, Val, Diego, Mateo, Dave, Julian, Powell, and I can do better. I know that your name is not pronounced that way. It's Pavo. Yes, perfect. Mark, Benislav, and Steven. And you were all gracious opponents. You were all like, I have memories from each of these games. I've been asked to rein my usual like desire to go into detail on each of my matches in for today's episode.
It's me. I'm the editor. I requested this. Sorry, everybody.
How many top 8s did you play from last year?
From last year?
You mentioned Steven.
Yeah.
Mark.
And is Valve top 8 from last year?
He was just shy.
Just shy. But I mean, this year,
G.
Mateo and Dave and Diego all go to the top 8 after kicking my butt. So
yeah.
So you played against 3 previous top 8s, and then you played against the 3 new top 8s.
Yeah. It was a hell of a gambit.
I will say, you landed in the gladiator pit. He landed in a pod that had 12 players, and 6 of them were Droms, and there were 3 returning top 8s.
Across the Droms I played too in that pool, they didn't have the same deck. They all had different plays on the deck. I fought 4 of them. Yeah, I feel like 2 of the 4 had to have been Reckless plus Blazing Assault, which was kind of like the combo. But
to the extent that in the semifinal that we tracked, which was James from England versus Daniele from Italy, as we'd set up the stream, we'd ask like, hey, what's your deck pairing? We asked James like, hey, you're playing Gorchosen, what's your deck pairing? Is like, what do you think? Like, the assumption was that everybody's playing Blazing Assault, Reckless Fury, but that was not true.
Right.
Wait a minute. What was James' last name?
Waters.
I have him down as Dave. I don't think I fought a Dave. I'm pretty confident
Are
that
you
was
thinking
James.
of Big Beard Arm?
No, I fought James Waters for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I butchered your name live on the cast. My bad.
Yeah.
I don't even that goes to show. Like I wrote down the names after the matches, and I'm brain burnt. I guess. That was my third match of day 2, and that was my third drum of day 2. I actually go to James later, and just kind of apologized just in case. He said it wasn't necessary at all, but I felt really deflated after that game because I had gone 2-0 the first day. And the second day, I fought 3 drums in a row, and I went 0-3. And I didn't win a single game, not a match, a game. I got close. I got so close. And so I was definitely feeling slump in my shoulders. You know, my head hung a little lower at the end of James' game, and I was trying my best to not let that be present and to try to still give it the good energy that it deserved, because James was such a fun opponent that I didn't want to weigh down his win. And I didn't want I wanted to meet him at his level and share that energy and excitement with him. So he said it wasn't necessary at all. But I was definitely in my head about it and wanted to check back. And that was the only game where like I kind of felt that way. So good to hear that he couldn't relate. He was like, "What are you talking about? You were great." But yeah, I mean, all in all, the sportsmanship and the camaraderie was one of the things that made the energy so unique. And
yeah, I think we can say sportsmanship was an incredibly high standard at the place where like the stakes are the highest. And that's not to say like people sacrifice level of play. And I think it's worth mentioning here just how incredible the Italian team had played. They
one last thing of sportsmanship, and this has to do with the Italians as well, is that I did see a lot of examples of players, in a moment where it's like, oh, I missed that opportunity, and then they would just go, no, do it. Like, I want to play you at your best.
I had a feeling you were going to bring this up. Yeah.
The moment just passed. I didn't do anything that would alter you getting that. Like, and usually this was like taking a counter or, like I need a blood tithe here. Like, go ahead, take it. Dude, I want to play you at your best. Give it to me. I love that. So cool.
Yeah. So that was... it sounds like it was more than the moment I shared with Brian, but it's one I want to highlight for sure.
Yeah, I got this from other players, not just you.
That makes me so happy. It was against Matteo. There was a moment where I had forgotten to grab a growth token. And it was really early on. And
this is the thing where like adding growth tokens, the inspire condition for the Ilthari's Guardians is an optional thing. Right.
Yep. It's a Ken. So planting a card is a Ken. Putting a growth token down is a Ken. And so like that's a trigger that you can miss. I was resolved to like I had a method where it was like, hey, I'm gonna put this token on the board during the power step to show you that as soon as this power step closes, my plan is to transfer this to this card. And I talked this over with my opponents, going into the matches too, because part of this is when a power step ends can be like such a quick and vague moment, because like you might say pass, and then your opponent might say, all right, I'm going to charge to here, kind of implying like I'm also passing. And like they'll flip their activation token where in it they're starting to throw dice. And so like that can happen so fast, and that's fine, especially when we have the clock against us. Like we're all trying to get 3 games in, but it's very easy in that transition to miss your growth token. And so I would always try to put it on the board to represent my intent. Like I am planning as soon as we both pass to put this here, and having to have already picked it out of my like organizer and put it there was my signal, like that this is me declaring full intent. And I had missed that moment with Mateo. Like I had not even put it on the corner of the board. And so he charged, threw dice at me. I picked up my defense dice and I went to like throw them in result, and I kind of just shrunk a little and went, oh, dang it. And he was like, what like, what is the problem? And I was like, I just missed my trigger. And, just kind of like, to just explain it quickly, I held up a growth token. As I said, I missed my trigger. I put it back in the organizer, went to go throw my dice, and just kind of like accept I missed my trigger. I didn't even ask for a take back. He reached across the table into my organizer, pulled the token out, put it on my card, and went, what? like
That's amazing.
Why are we having this conversation? So
I also thought a real classy move, again from Mateo, is, and I saw this from Daniela and Mateo as well, is they would check the discard pile of an objective deck. Like, it's open information. You can check what they have scored and what is in their deck. And they would do this at the end of a game before they go into game 2, check the scored discard pile. And it's like going into the next round, they're reminding themselves this is their game plan. And you had mentioned a real class act was that, Mateo was like, hey, can I see your deck? And then you're like, oh, wow, I'd never thought about this. This is open information. And he just hands you his discard deck too. Like,
yep.
Fantastic. That is, you're like, that's such a pro move that you're like, of course, this is free information. I should be taking advantage of this more. I feel rude to ask it. And he's just like, no, here you go.
Yeah, this is from the perspective of streaming, watching these guys. So it was one thing to see them when they're playing each other to do this, and like, well, these guys have clearly played each other a bunch. They probably have a good understanding of each other's decks. But to do that when it was somebody they had not played before, and they're like drawing conclusions about like, that's probably what I have not seen. This is probably what I haven't seen 3 cards out of their objectives, and I think that's probably these 3 cards or whatever. Like, it was demonstrative of like the level of understanding and preparation that they had put into the game, and that's what got them to that top.
Yeah. The confidence you have to like hand your opponent your game plan and just be like, I'll still beat you.
Yeah.
I loved it. Like you said, it was just such a class act. Like when he asked me for mine, he was the first opponent to do so. I started telling my future opponents like about this experience, at least in some of my games that followed. And so like I looked at some opponents' decks afterwards and handed them mine, but like I would not have thought at Worlds, even at Worlds, like it had space from my brain, that I should be asking that. I think to myself like, oh, what did they have in that deck again? And it's like, why not just at the end of the game ask my opponent and be like Mateo and just immediately hand them my own deck? Like, it's very cool. Go ahead.
Oh, I mean, if we got any more to say on sportsmanship, we should do it. But I was going to use that as a segue into like a salute to the Italian team. So before we get there, anything else?
Yeah. So one other fun way to like play the game, I guess, is a sportsmanship thing between G and I at the beginning of the game. So G was my first opponent. And this is just fun.
This was tragic. This was horrible.
So what little prep time Skylar did give himself, he was like, I either want to bring Miaris or Yeltharis. And we were going back and forth on it, and it was right up until deck submission. And basically
the day before,
you threw it in, you locked it in, and then I'm looking at what everybody else is locking in. And I see G has selected, and you had chosen Yeltharis. And then I saw that G had selected Yeltharis and Amon had chosen Miaris. And I was just like, oh my God, like, who's right? I don't know.
And then to end up in the same pool and to end up with the first match being against each other.
Yeah, the
Oh
only two
boy.
Eltharis out of the 46 had to mirror match in the very first round.
Yeah, all three of them had like Spectre taking out Drom, and then unfortunately Ylthari versus Ylthari were like, all right, well, what's it gonna be?
Well, and the only time I've gotten to play G was at Nova, and he brought Crimson Court, and I brought Skace Wild Hunt with Rhymelock Relics, and it was later on, way later on in the event when we finally got to play, and I remember being like, "Oh my gosh, I want to show him what I'm capable of." Like G is just somebody that I've always held in high regard from like a play standpoint. I always love that he goes like counter meta or off meta and tries to do these interesting things. So just admired him as a player. And I remember making minor mistakes against him during the Crimson Court versus Wild Hunt match, and it just ate at me afterwards. I was like, man, like I could have performed better. Like, and I was just focusing on those play mistakes, which maybe weren't even apparent to my opponent, but were like sitting in my brain like daggers. And so being able to sit down to another game, I was like, man, I really want to show him what I can do here. And we're going to be, mechanically held to the same warband here. Let's see how this goes. And so I had nerves going into this, and he I think he went first, and he hadn't necessarily missed it yet, I don't think, or like had started power. And I was like, hey, do you want to plant a card? Just kind of starting this off, on a good, friendly sportsmanship foot. And he was like, oh yeah, of course, thank you. Set it down. And same thing with, I think, the growth token at the end. It was like, don't forget to toss a growth token on that. Just kind of like prepping ourselves for our first game. And when I took my turn, I forgot those things as well. I think I remember planting the card, but I was forgetting the growth token first game, right? And I hadn't figured out my method of madness yet to like putting them on the board. And I didn't want to assume that I was going to be allowed to like have that trigger. But I kind of looked at G and I was like, hey, I did miss my trigger. And he was like, no. We're not playing that way. He's like, we both get our plants. We both get our growth tokens. I want to play this game like we both remembered every single plant and every single growth token. Like we're not playing a game that is on like, I won because you forgot this one little trigger. And that was the tone, that kind of like set my Worlds experience forward. And it was such a delightful tone because then the entire time, there wasn't like like I kind of am going to let him forget, sort of feeling on either side of the table. We were just sitting there reminding each other to do so constantly. And that was really fun. And I had a great set with him.
And I technically met G when we had him on the podcast after last year's Worlds, and then I technically met him in person at Nova, but it was this meeting that I was super impressed by his attitude and approach to the game. Like 100%, super awesome.
It didn't set me up well for my future games where I was gonna hold myself to like, no, you forgot the trigger. And there were plenty of times. Thankfully they were on the like smaller end. Like I was okay, like emotionally, mentally, with the amount of times I forgot my trigger. But it wasn't zero, and I would let it pass without comment majority of the time, and it would eat at me. Like every time I let like myself miss one of those, and I probably was against some opponents that would have been okay with it, but I was trying to hold myself to like, yes, this is a new edition, and there's a lot to take in and process here, and you're at Worlds, but I wanted to hold myself to it, I guess, as much as I could. And so it wasn't the best start to get like reminders from my opponent and to remind my opponent when I was like, I'm not going to have these going forward.
I don't know if this comparison is just going to be lost on everyone else, but I think it's appropriate, is that you had both chosen to be Goku competitors rather than being Vegeta's, and you could either have a mismatch of like Vegeta trying to get one over on Goku, but you chose to both have fun in the spirit of the competition.
This is some kind of young person's reference that I'm too old to understand.
Those keep coming up.
It's Dragon Ball Z. It's like, it's, come on.
No,
it's not new.
I actually think that Brian reached for this specifically to make you feel like that was the third time this cast.
Yeah, I feel targeted.
Yeah.
No, if it was new, it'd be like Demon Slayer or even something more recent.
I think this is a time now. Like we talked,
we can bring it
for
home.
good reason, a ton about sportsmanship. I can't go past it. The Italians, just a dominant performance. Like we made a joke many times on the stream about like a lot of talk has been given to how dominant Drum has been, like as a selection and their victory rate or whatever, but not enough has been spent on how dominant the Italian team has been.
Well, and it wasn't even like they were just rocking drums. Like you had Thricefold Discord, Kaiger's Ravagers, and Drum. You had Goro on Thricefold Discord, Alessandro on Kaiger's Ravagers, and then Matteo on Drum. And each of them were playing it so good.
Of the three
I do sympathize most with Alessandro because he playing that Kaiger's Ravagers horde mode, talking with his compatriots. They said that like poor Alessandro, he's playing on cardiac arrest. His heart, like every time we get into round 2 and 3, he's living and dying by his defense dice rolls, relying on that 2 block to carry it through. And I feel that.
Yeah. I mean, what a prince. We had him on the stream, and we actually had, once he figured out it was an all-Italian final, there's only a couple of people requested to be on the stream. He was one of them, and the only thing he requested was once he knew it was an all-Italian final, it was like, please, can I be on there, to like commentate? And I was like, Alessandro, you got to play your match. And he's like, yeah, but when it's done, I'm coming to you. It's like, all right, if you do it 2-0 or 0-2, you're in. And he was, and we got to pull him in. It was a great moment.
That was so cool.
But what a salute to the Italians. Like the only person, literally the only person in the entire tournament that beat an Italian Underworlds player that was not also Italian was Mads from Denmark.
Yeah.
And otherwise the Italians did not lose to another player that was from outside their own little cluster. And what I love about that, it is a testament to preparation. Like they played the heck out of each other. Like they played against each other. They figured out what was strong. And Matteo, who brought Gore Chosen, which obviously 16 other players did, but Matteo brought Gore Chosen, and he brought him with Reckless Fury and Countdown to Cataclysm rather than that default Reckless Fury Blazing Assault. And it was a conscious choice, and you watched him play it, and it was masterful. It was incredible. And that was the thing I just took away, was like watching these guys play. Some of the games I would watch, like, oh, I'm really excited to play. And some I would watch, I'm like, I don't know if I can play at this level. This is amazing. And so
Matteo absolutely dismantled me.
It is, I think, the through point on this whole episode is like the energy and the buzz that we get from the event, like at Worlds, is like nothing other. And I think the main drivers of that is the sportsmanship that we saw at such high levels. People could have just been, extremely hard on each other to, catch every mistake and capitalize on that. And we didn't see that. Even in like the top 4, it was excellent sportsmanship all around. And additionally is just being impressed with each other at the level of play. Like I genuinely feel like I wouldn't be able to play at that level, but I want to try. And seeing that on display, being impressed with each other and congratulating each other and having that sportsmanship is just nothing else like it.
Yeah, what else can you say than like seeing this level of play and being like, this makes me want to play the game more? Like that is, we all came back into this episode. We talked about how much we've been thinking about Underworlds. It's because it was invigorating. And so I say to you out there, whether you had somebody representing you at Worlds or not, like it's a great game. It is. I know we can expect some changes. Obviously, like 17 drums, and their win rate, like the number of them that made it in the top 10, like we can expect to see some adjustments. But even within that, like I just saw a level of play that was awesome, and I'm talking here from like the technical level, the sportsmanship level, all that. It was great. Really,
I want to
good.
say, like, I came back, wanted to be better, like be a better opponent. And I had a moment where, like, I think we were just exhausted from all the effort. And I had a hothead moment, and I did, apologize to that person. And I actually found myself using the phrase, like, that was unworlds of me. And I was like, huh.
Wow.
So fantastic of event and inspiring me to do better. I'm still going to falter, still going to have my hothead moments or be exhausted or currently brain addled on no sleep. But I think that is the best part about Worlds, is that it's inspiring us to be better opponents, be better players, and bring that home and invigorate our local scenes.
I think so.
I can't wait to do it next year.
I think I'm going to go one time around the horn here. Like, I think we've kind of covered the full experience. I'm going to give everybody one last chance to give final thoughts here before we do our outro. And Brian, as the one who's held it down for the longest, been to Worlds twice, I'm going to start with you. Any last thoughts on Worlds?
Well, shout out to Phil for keeping the home front down. He kept the wheels turning, got our content out on the day, on the Saturday. So appreciate you, Phil, for that. It was so wonderful to see everybody at Worlds. I hope that next year Phil can join us and experience it for himself. I hope that everybody, if you have the desire, get out there, chase it. It's like nothing else, and I think it's only going to get better. I can't wait to see everybody again. It was wonderful seeing everybody again. I was so happy to share it with all of you this year and going forward.
What about you, Skylar?
I just want to say that I plan to be back next year, and like that's whether or not I have a ticket and get to return as a player. I'm planning on being there, whether maybe the stream comes back. That's an unknown for us. But that would be cool, and I'd love to be a part of it. Or I'm just there to see you all again and enjoy the energy of Worlds. I plan on being there, and we kind of talked about format a little bit. I really liked how the brackets played out. That after pool play, you were either in the championship bracket or the world bracket, and like no matter which bracket you were in, you would end up scored against each other yet. I thought that was all really, really exciting. And it was the world's bracket. I got the most variety I had the whole event. I got to fight four different warbands in a row. And that felt really, really good too. I guess that's just some random closing thoughts here.
That's fair. I mean, here's my random closing thoughts. Like the stream, once it was flowing, and I appreciate the patience of everybody who bore with us through that first day where we were figuring out, technical things. But, we're juggling all these things. We're like, we want to show nations that have not been on. And for that, I want to specific shout out Diego. I think it still is our most watched single match is the one that Diego was a part of from Chile. And people were wild for Diego. And he was just an amazing individual.
He was so nice.
Oh, God, like the gentlest being you could ever imagine. We'd be like, it was our first of 10 matches that we streamed, and it'd be like 7 matches later, and there'd still be people in the chat who were like, how's Diego doing? And I was like, oh man, let me look that up for you, because that's very important to a lot of people apparently.
Yeah, I think you were saying like just like the Hispanic, all the countries kind of like our boy Diego.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what it was, but when he was on, it was like the chat was nonstop Chilean flags. It was incredible.
Wonderful.
But yeah, it was a thing that I hopped on. It's easy to say yes to a thing when it is like not concrete, when it is insubstantial, and then we ended up doing it. And to be a part of that and to like have all that feedback, like we do this podcast. This is the 158th episode of the podcast that we've done. We get feedback all the time, but I don't get it in that immediate way. And it was just incredibly like realize what a part of the community you can be and what the community is out there. And it was so wide ranging. I did a thing where like I collected all the feedback that we had from all this stuff to share it with the rest of the podcast and be like, hey guys, like this is what we did together. This is kind of incredible. Like, take a look. This is all part of your handiwork. It was crazy to see that community there like that.
I want to make an offer because I was trying to reach out, learn about the local scenes abroad in the different countries, and kind of last year I was talking with Sebastian and Carol, and Carol wasn't able to make it this year, but they were telling me how they have like 60-man tournaments locally, and they're like, we need more tickets. I was like, yeah, you do. Like, let's get more Poland out here. And they doubled their numbers. They almost tripled it, but unfortunately Carol had to drop. I was hoping to see him again because he's also so sweet. Sebastian, great to see you again. I was glad we got to meet Benislav and the rest of the Poland team. It was so cool. And so I want to make the offer. If you are trying to get your local scene representation, if you want a golden ticket out to your event, I can't make any promises, but I want to help bridge that connection. I want to try and help facilitate those connections. So I have some contact information. If you want to reach out to us, hit our email and they will get it to me. I'll try and facilitate that communication. It can be kind of hard staying on the radar with the emails because they get a lot of them. If you have questions about running an event, what do you need to do to earn a golden ticket? We can help answer those questions, and I can try and field that for the events team. And we would direct you to like Battle Mallet. They have an excellent assistance for running your own event, making your own player pack. They have a draft, and we can help walk you through that. We help Jake through it. We'd love to do that. If you have questions about getting a golden ticket, that's a separate sort of conversation, and I'll help facilitate that as best I can.
And I tell you, dream big. Like, again, it's been covered many times on this podcast, but Phil and I started just like the two of us playing, and we got to the point where we had enough where we are giving away a World's ticket for a local event, and Madison sent 2 people to the World Championships of Warhammer. Like, it's a cool moment.
We had to go steal one from the Canadians.
Sure, we did. But I mean, that's homegrown talent, and that is building up your local. We're not out there poaching the best players that we can find.
Yeah.
We're trying to make it happen here. And I'll point that out is like Phil and I, tried to start that scene. Guess how many of the 2 of us made it to that on qualifications. That the answer is 0. Like it is all people that we generated for. You can do that too.
Heck, it's a cool thing. The Spanish scene, like for streamers, heck, we might even get dethroned by a Spanish Underworld stream because the amount of uproar for Diego, who knows? They had 2 separate Spanish streams, one for the largest systems and one for Kill Team. And like those guys were great. They were a big help last year and this year, helping with that language barrier and help clearing things up. You never know. Like maybe you'll be one of those streams if you just got to get out there and do it and get the ball rolling.
Speaking of the Spanish team, special shout out to Alvaro, who I talked with quite a bit. What a great guy.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to do it for us. Like we obviously, like we've demonstrated, we could go on forever about the good vibes from Worlds. It was great.
Yeah,
It was
you
a
see
great
where I
experience.
was last year?
Yeah, no, I do.
It's killing me not to share like a
Every little
memory,
moment,
a
right?
memory.
I know.
Well, a memory from like each of my opponents, because
Yeah.
I have them. So
Yeah, we're
and
leaving
it's all great.
a lot of the meat on the bone here. Like we could go on for a lot longer, but we still have a dedication to like making a workable podcast, which is something we're doing.
I wanted to make this a two-parter, folks.
He did, and I said nay, but
Tell him
we
he's
are
wrong.
Well,
Tell him he's
and
wrong.
I want to highlight why you said no though, because I think it's really cool that majority of our audience, isn't tournament chasers. Aren't necessarily people that get out to tournaments and aren't necessarily people that are going to find themselves at Worlds. And so, to keep bringing you content and not like we want to cover something like this. This means a lot to us. This was a really exciting opportunity, but we don't want to sit here and make the next 2-3 episodes about Worlds. We want to kind of give it this one shot special moment, and then get back to just talking Underworlds with you for the greater audience out there that are at home jamming games, and we feel lucky enough to have you listening.
Yeah, eloquently said. I really appreciate that, and that is a like conscious choice, a force of will to like tamp down on a thing that we're like over the moon about. What we're trying to say is like that vibe that exists wherever you're playing your games and really enjoying this game, that exists at the highest levels of play. And so like be part of that spirit, be part of the spirit wherever you're playing it, that exists where you're playing, and that exists at the top levels too. So we are going to be back at you in a couple of weeks. That's the What the Heck's promise. We've been burning the candle at both ends, and so we're going to relax things a little bit. You're still going to get your episode every 2 weeks throughout the December month, but we are going to take it a little bit easy, recover from all the efforts from Worlds and from the new releases.
Yeah, it was a lot, and now we're in the holiday season, so
yep, exactly.
Gear up for kicking things back off in 2025.
Yep, might be a bat rep, might be one of the 13 war bands that we didn't get to hit a blog up about.
I got to get my hands on these lizards.
Yeah, you do. Phil is running wild with them, but I got to tangle with him. That was good times. But yeah, so we'll still be coming at you the same schedule you're used to coming up. We obviously want to thank GW for letting us take part in this. Like they asked us to stream this. We did do it out of our own pocket, out of our own time. I think that I was saying our own time, our own dime, to make that happen. And if you want to be able to contribute to our ability to do that, you can give a contribution to our Patreon. That did help fund some of the things, some of the equipment that made the whole thing possible. So I thank you to Skylar for providing the expertise or to cover some of that equipment. It would be appreciated on the Patreon. You can check out the content from the entire network at themortalrealms.com. All the different shows. That's Path to Story. That's Dogs of Warcry. That is the Story Phase. And all those shows. We thank them for letting us be a part of that network. Is it a big thing? It's going to be a big showing at Adepticon here. Now it's in Wisconsin, the best state in the union, coming up. So that'll be coming at you. Boys, it's been a long talk. It's been a long, good vibe here, and I hate to shake it all apart with making you feel silly, but I think you might be ready for some flavor text. Are you, or are you not?
I killed it after the last one. Bring it.
So I listened to that episode, and I'm intimidated, Brian, by your ability to hit that. Yeah.
I think I already know this one because of all the effort we did.
Oh, interesting. So, all right, here we go. I think this is one that you can. I'll say no more. Here we go. Unattributed. The strongest bonds can endure even the burning fury stoked by Emberstone.
Share the load.
Done it.
Are you kidding?
He got
He's
it.
Unstoppable.
Casually nailed it. That is going to do it for us. Your recommended listening, and I'm particularly proud of this one because it is from an Atlanta band. It's Outcast with The Whole World featuring Killer Mike, also an Atlanta musician. For What the Hex, I've been Davy.
I've been Skylar.
And I've been Brian.
Good to hear. Brian, did you hear that word sleep?
What?
What?
Oh.
I believe Brian is on a 36-hour moment right now.
Yeah, sleep. No.
I mean, I feel like it's going to more properly capture the world's experience. So
Yeah. You
cool.
little faith.
Me of realistic expectations.
I'm going to back that up. I didn't like the way I said that at all.
Well, too bad it's going to be in the
No.
in the cuts. Yeah. Carry on though.
Okay.